You've heard the number your whole life, $1 million. As a kid, it sounded like a finish line, like the place where everything got quiet and easy and permanent. But nobody ever told you what it actually feels like to have money. Not the number, the feeling. Because here's what they don't teach you. Every level of wealth has its own emotion, its own specific, private fear, its own version of the same voice saying, "This isn't enough yet." This story isn't about how to get rich. It's about what you're actually signing up for at every step. Because the level you're at right now has a feeling, and the level above it has one too, and you should probably know what it is before you spend your life chasing it. Level 1. $0. You're 23 years old. Your checking account has $140 in it. Payday is in 6 days. You are not panicking. And that's the strange part. Because at zero, truly at zero, the fear is constant enough that it stops feeling like fear. It becomes the background noise of your life. You plan around it. You eat around it. You socialize around it. You say you're not hungry when you are. You say you're tired when you're calculating. You check your balance in the car before you walk into the grocery store. Every purchase is a negotiation. Every unexpected expense is a small emergency. The water heater breaks. That's not a repair. That's a crisis. But here's the thing about zero that nobody talks about. There is a strange freedom in it. When you have nothing to protect, you are afraid of nothing being taken. You are surviving. And surviving has its own quiet dignity. You just don't know that yet, because all you can see is the $140 and the 6 days. Level 2, $10,000. You're 27. You have $10,000 in a savings account. You put it there slowly, over 2 years. $50 here, a tax return there. 1 month where you ate nothing interesting for 30 days straight. And the morning you hit $10,000, you feel something you have never felt before about money. Safety. For approximately 3 weeks. Then the feeling shifts, because $10,000 is enough to know what it feels like to have a cushion and to suddenly become terrified of losing it. A new fear shows up, not the fear of having nothing, the fear of going back to nothing. You stop spending on things you used to spend on without thinking. A $60 dinner feels reckless. A flight home for the holidays feels like a threat to the number. You have built something, and the moment you build something, you understand for the first time what it means to lose something. $10,000 doesn't buy freedom, it buys a new kind of anxiety, one that only people who have $10,000 understand. Level 3, $100,000. You're 34. It took longer than you planned. There were setbacks, a car, a medical bill, 2 years where you made no progress at all. But there it is, $100,000, in an account, working, and you expect to feel like a different person. You don't. You feel like the exact same person with a larger number. The fear doesn't disappear at $100,000. It evolves. At zero, you feared the present. At $10,000, you feared going back. At $100,000, you fear the future. What if the market crashes? What if I lose my job? What if I get sick? What if this took me 11 years to build and it takes 11 months to disappear? Here is the brutal truth about $100,000. It is enough to feel wealthy to people who have nothing. And it is nowhere near enough to feel secure to anyone who actually has it. The goalpost moved. It always moves. But something else happens at $100,000 that nobody warned you about. For the first time, money starts making money without you. You wake up on a Tuesday, you go to work, you come home, and $47 appeared in your account while you were doing other things. That's the first time you feel it. The first small whisper of what money actually is when it's working. Not a cushion, not a safety net, a machine. You just need to leave it alone long enough to run. Level 4, $500,000. You're 41. $500,000. You say the number quietly in your head sometimes, never out loud. You've learned not to say it out loud, because at $500,000, a new social weight appears. You start editing what you say around people. You don't mention the vacation, you don't mention the account balance, you don't mention the decision you made last year that worked. Wealth becomes a secret you carry. And here's what nobody talks about at this level: the gap. You can see it clearly now, for the first time in your life, the difference between people who are building and people who are not. The friends who are still where you were at 27. The family members who spend every dollar as it arrives. The coworkers buying things on payments you used to buy on payments. You don't say anything. You understand it's not your place, but you see it. And you understand something that took you 41 years to understand. The gap is almost never about income. It's about what happens to the money after it arrives. And sitting on the right side of that gap for the first time, the feeling is not pride. It's a quiet, complicated grief for the years you were on the other side, and a wish, a real wish, that someone had shown you the machine earlier. Level 5, $1 million. You're 49. The number finally arrives. 7 figures. The finish line you imagined when you were 10 years old. You refresh the account. You sit with it for a moment, and then you do something that surprises you. You close the app, and you go make dinner. Because the first thing $1 million teaches you, the very first thing, is that it doesn't feel like anything you were told it would feel like. It doesn't feel like arrival. It feels like silence. And inside that silence is something you weren't prepared for. The anticlimax. You spent 26 years building toward a number. You told yourself, without ever saying it out loud, that the number would feel different, that you would feel different, that some version of okay would finally arrive and stay. And then it arrives, and you feel more or less exactly like yourself. Maybe a quieter version of yourself, maybe a version with fewer emergencies, but yourself. And the silence of that realization is louder than any fear you've ever had. Because fear you know how to carry. Silence is something else entirely. Then the new weight appears. Not the fear of having nothing. That version of you is gone. The new weight is this. You are now responsible for not undoing what took you 26 years to build. And that responsibility, the weight of preservation, sits next to your freedom every single day. Quietly, without asking permission. The freedom is real. It is everything you worked for, but it has a shadow, and nobody told you the shadow would be this heavy. Here is what this story is really about. Every level of wealth has a version of the same feeling. This isn't quite enough yet. At $140, it's survival. At $10,000, it's the fear of going back. At $100,000, it's the fear of the future. At $500,000, it's the weight of the secret. At $1 million, it's the silence of arrival. The feeling changes shape at every level, but it never fully disappears. And if you are waiting to feel okay, waiting for the number that finally makes the voice go quiet, that number does not exist. What changes is not the feeling. What changes is your relationship with time. The time shift. At 0, you are owned by the present. Every dollar is spoken for before it arrives. Every month is its own small emergency. Time is not something you have. Time is something that is happening to you. At $1 million, time works for you. While you sleep, while you eat, while you live. The machine runs without you. That's the real difference between 0 and $1 million. Not the feeling, not the lifestyle, not the things you can buy. The direction time flows. At 0, time costs you money. At $1 million, money costs you time. Everything in between is just the distance between those two truths. And every dollar you save, every dollar you don't spend on something that doesn't matter, buys back a fraction of that time. Not a feeling, not a lifestyle upgrade. Time, yours, that nobody can take back. The plain truth. Here is the one thing this story teaches. The feeling never arrives. The habits do. Nobody reaches a number and suddenly feels enough. What changes is who you became to get there. Every level of fear, the $140 fear, the $10,000 fear, the $100,000 fear, the $500,000 fear, the $1 million silence, all of it was the same process wearing different clothes. The process of someone deciding not to stop. That's it. That's the whole story. Not the number, the decision not to stop. What level are you at? You are somewhere on this map right now. Maybe you're at the $140. Maybe you're at the $10,000, guarding the cushion. Maybe you're at the $100,000, waking up on Tuesdays. Wherever you are, the feeling you have right now is exactly the feeling that belongs to your level. It is not a sign that something is wrong. It is not a sign that you are behind. It is the feeling of someone who is still in it, still deciding, still building, still choosing the machine over the moment. And that feeling, that specific, private, uncomfortable feeling, is the most important sign that you are doing it right. The next level, the level above you, has a feeling too. You don't know what it is yet, and that's fine. You don't need to know the feeling in advance. You just need to know that whoever has arrived there felt exactly what you're feeling now at exactly the stage you're at. The fear is not a sign to stop. The fear is the entry fee. Every level charges it. Every level is worth it. The one thing I want you to take away from this video is start now, not next month, not when the emergency passes, not when the income is higher or the debt is lower or the timing finally feels right. The timing never feels right. The feeling never arrives first. The decision comes first, always. One decision, this week, that your future self will be standing inside of 20 years from now, looking at a number, closing the app, and going to make dinner. Subscribe to Plain Money Man. Next week, we talk about the habits, not the number, the specific, boring, unsexy habits that every level of this map has in common. Same character, plain truth. See you then.